Alabama 1st and 10 on the 12. Again, Houston. He's got a hole. He's over. Alabama touchdown.
I'm just wondering if your listeners know how good a football player you were. I can still see you playing that fullback, knocking those players out of the way. And I believe I could have run behind you.
Martin, I can remember when we came to summer and you were playing fullback up there, and I saw you in the weight room and watched you work out in the weight room. If you could you were strong enough to pick up the whole weight room. I wanted to fix it, and our running back coach didn't take the biggest mistake we ever made.
The Martin Houston Show with national championship winning fullback Martin Houston, giving you 1 hour of intense, hard-hitting analysis from an insider's perspective. It's time for the Martin Houston Show on your home for Alabama sports, Tide 100.9, and streaming on the Tide 100.9 app.
Good morning. Welcome to the Martin Houston Show, powered by MaXSports. It's the sound of Bama sports. Your show, your team. The Playbook today, Wildcard Wednesday, Georgia versus Alabama. We'll look at the comparison game. Back to the future, college football playoff rankings, and we'll wrap things up with the Harvest Church Christian Moment of the Week with Scotty, Hollins, and more. Join, share, and like the live stream at the Martin Houston 35, at Martin Houston 35 fan page, and MaXSports on Facebook, and then Martin Houston 35 on YouTube and the X/Twitter. We're live, local, and ready to get things rolling right here on your home for Alabama sports, Tide 100.9. That is the hotline there. So give us a call, 205-342-9904. Send your comments, reactions, and questions to the live stream, and we'll work those into the conversation. The comparison game, you may be saying, hey, what's that? That's where we're going to look at position by position and make a comparison. Who you give the advantage to. Is this an evenly matched game? We may even incorporate the coaches into that. Back to the future, we'll take a look at the Alabama versus Georgia games in recent history and see have the Georgia Bulldogs clearly been the most dominant team in college football over the last 3 years? And if yes, why? If no, why not? Or are they playing the one team in the country that could take claim to that and reclaim their perch as the top dog in college football? We'll talk about those things. We'll talk about the college football rankings. The question there is to get in or not. That is the question. Can Alabama get in with a win? Will it be a travesty if Alabama and Georgia both are left out? Would the college football world absolutely fall apart if both got in? I don't want Georgia in. I don't want you to have to beat Georgia twice. That's how they got the first national title. We dominated game one. They won game two. It looks like the score looks like they dominated X. I'm not sure they did. We'll talk about it. That's going to be a part of the Back to the Future scenario that we talk through here later on in the program. But once again, I want to invite you to get in on the conversation at 205-342-9904. That's the Alabama One hotline. Or go ahead and get your thoughts and comments in on chat in the live stream. So, yeah. So, X, where you want to start, man? I mean, you want to start with the college football playoff rankings? Let's go ahead and start there because while it's fresh on our minds, and we'll be debating that probably for the next few weeks, no matter how it comes out. So, you want to start there? You're muted, I guess. When we look at the college, yeah, I got you.
Yes, that's where I want to start, and I think it is an absolute joke. After last night, Boo Corrigan made the analysis, the process, an absolute mockery. Everything that he changes what the criteria is every week. And for those who don't know, he was specifically asked, why is Oregon ranked ahead of Texas? And I don't know why Ohio State is ranked ahead of Texas. Just to be honest, I don't know why Ohio State is ranked ahead of Alabama. They play a 2-game schedule, and they're 1-1 in those games. But
what's the 2-game schedule? Penn State?
You kind of got to say Penn State.
Okay.
You kind of got to. Their only 2 losses are to Michigan and Ohio State.
So why is Penn State in front of Ole Miss?
Oh, it's a resume builder.
Right? Penn State lost to who? Michigan and Ohio State.
Yeah.
Okay. And Ole Miss lost to Georgia and Alabama.
Mm-hmm.
So Georgia is 1, Michigan 2. So they're saying the combine of Michigan and Ohio State is better than the combine of Georgia and Alabama. Pretty much that's what they're saying. But then look at the rest of Penn State's wins. Who else is ranked in the top? Who else is ranked in the Big Ten? Iowa at number 18. Okay.
Yeah.
And then LSU is 13.
Mm-hmm.
So when you add up the combined rankings, that would make Ole Miss's combined ranking higher than Penn State's.
Correct. It's a joke. It's a joke.
Yeah.
But last night when Boo Corrigan got up there and said, why do you have Oregon in front of Texas? And Bo Nix's completion percentage came out of his mouth. It made it a joke. I can't take him serious anymore. Bo Nix's completion percentage was one of the reasons.
What? I didn't get to see it last night.
Yes. Oh, you didn't hear that?
No.
Yeah. Yes. Bo Nix's completion percentage. The way they're winning, the average margin of win, I think, was the other one, and their loss to Washington is the reason why they're in front of Texas.
Okay. Well, there you go. It's a watch this. I want you to look at something now. All right. Let me take this off the screen so the people watching can see. Take it off. Okay. You have Georgia, Michigan, Washington, Florida State, top 4 teams all playing in their conference championship. Okay. Washington, legit. They're gonna have to play to win the championship. They got to play Oregon. Okay. So they're gonna have to play a team that they've beat, which is hard to beat a team twice. They're gonna have to beat that team. Okay. So legit. Georgia has to play Alabama. They're gonna have to play to win their conference championship. They're gonna have to play to win that out. Now let's look at the other teams that they're saying they are in the mix to win a championship. Okay. Michigan has to beat number 16 to get in. So are conference championship games built equal? Michigan has to be the number 16 team with what, 3 losses?
Two losses.
10-2, whatever, to get in, but they're number 16. Okay. Florida State has to beat a number 14 team. Okay. And then Texas in the conference they're playing in. This is the point I'm making. Texas has to beat the number 18 team. The second best team, okay, for Texas in their conference. The second best team in their conference, the number 12 team, if head-to-head matters, they got beat by the second best team, Oklahoma. Then they're going to play the number 18 team. When in the anyway, you see my point. Conferences aren't built equal, etc. And Oklahoma State may do us a favor again. You know, they did a favor and lost a few years back to like UNLV or somebody, Nevada.
Iowa State.
Well, I think they also got beat by Kaepernick 1 year.
It wouldn't surprise me.
So, but either way, that's the college football playoff. That's the craziness of it. You know, when you look at it, MHO 047 saying having Oregon, Ohio State ahead of Texas and Bama in the college football doesn't make any sense. They left Ohio State there in case there's chaos, absolute chaos. Because if there is a scenario that if certain things happen, say Georgia beats Alabama and Washington beats Oregon, who's in?
And Texas loses.
So,
if Texas loses, Bama loses, and Washington wins, they'll put Ohio State back in.
If Florida State loses and Oregon loses, then the debate becomes Texas and Ohio State.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and who that Nanner don't have to take the head-to-head. And what has happened to Ohio State? Ohio State got in last year without playing. Ohio State, go back and watch this. Ohio State in the first year of the playoff jumped undefeated teams. Mm. Ohio State has a track record for getting in without playing in their championship. And also jumping from 6 to 4 with the teams in front of them being undefeated. So I'm telling you, don't underestimate Ohio State if Georgia and Michigan wins. Don't do it. Because now they're going to be able to say what? Who has the best loss? Because that's what it's going to come down to.
That's why they won't move Texas up.
Huh?
That's part of the reason why they won't move Texas up. So Alabama can't have the case for the best win.
Absolutely, that's
best loss.
That's absolutely that's what it is. Because Texas now, Alabama becomes a 2-loss team. So it becomes a different scenario at that point. So we'll talk about it. We know Robert wants to talk about it. Pat wants to talk about it. Coming back on the other side, we'll talk about the college football playoff. To get in or not get in, that is the question. Can the Tide get in? And if they don't, is it a farce? We'll talk about it. The Tide has to win, then we'll let the debate begin.
Tide 100.9 traffic.
From the Townsend Nissan Traffic Center, we got a wreck on 15th Street. This is near 4th Avenue East at the Sprint Mart. Emergency personnel are on the scene. We have lane blockage and delays. If you see other conditions, just give me a call. Townsend Nissan's year-end closeout is on now with discounts up to $10,000. No reasonable offer will be refused. Townsend Nissan, and I'm Captain Ray.
What child is this that angel host attend? Jesus grew to answer this. John 6:35, I am the bread of life. John 7:38, I am the living water. John 11:25, I am the resurrection and the life. Yes, Jesus says, I am that I am. Believe him and have a Merry Christmas from Taco Casa.
Some days I cover up because of my moderate to severe plaque psoriasis. Now I'm hitting the road with clearer skin thanks to Skyrizi, Rizumkizumab Riza, a prescription-only 150 milligram injection for adults who are candidates for systemic or phototherapy. With Skyrizi, 3 out of 4 people achieved 90% clearer skin at 4 months. And Skyrizi is just 4 doses a year after 2 starter doses.
Don't use if allergic to Skyrizi. Serious allergic reactions and an increased risk of infections or a lower ability to fight them may occur. Before treatment, your doctor should check for infection and tuberculosis. Tell your doctor if you have an infection or symptoms such as fever, sweats, chills, muscle aches, or cough, or if you plan to or recently received a vaccine.
Thanks to Skyrizi, there's nothing on my skin, and that means everything. Ask your doctor today about Skyrizi, the #1 dermatologist prescribed biologic in psoriasis, and visit skyrizi.com or call 1-866-SKY-RIZZI to learn more.
Tide 100.9 Tuscaloosa weather.
A sunny sky today, Tuscaloosa's high 57. Tonight clear with the low at 32. Tomorrow partially sunny during the day. Rain moving in tomorrow night, the high 61. Friday cloudy with occasional rain. Friday's high 65. I'm James Spann on the ABC 3340 Weather Center on Tide 100.9. It's 26 degrees in Tuscaloosa.
Keep it locked into Tide 100.9 for more of the Martin Houston Show with Martin Houston and X's and O's Sports Xavier Houston.
College football playoff rankings. They're out. You got Georgia #1, Michigan #2, Washington #3, Florida State back at 4, Oregon at 5, Ohio State at 6. Everything else, I think, pretty much stayed the same with the exception of Louisville falling to 14 after the loss. LSU jumps back up to 13. Several interesting scenarios up there. The as you look through the bottom half, Alabama has a win over Tennessee, over LSU, and Ole Miss. So Alabama sitting with the most, I think, ranked wins of anybody. Georgia has a win over Missouri and Ole Miss and Tennessee. So they both have 3 as well. So and then then the other conferences, Michigan beat Ohio State and Penn State. No, where's that daunted Pac-12, Xavier? Let me see. You got Washington, Oregon, Arizona at 15. Arizona at 15. Oregon State at 20. Doesn't Oregon State have like 4 losses? And they keep holding them on? You see what I'm saying?
They've lost the last 2 games. They've lost the last 2 games, and they're in front of Tennessee.
I don't trust the committee. That's enough said. Let's bring in Robert. Robert, you're in with Martin and Xavier on the Alabama One hotline. What's on your mind, sir?
You guys don't trust the committee just because they're showing clear bias? I just don't understand this. Well, yeah, what's not to trust? They're setting this in it. We've talked about this for how many weeks now? They've been setting up scenarios
Every week?
We started coming a mile away. I can't get over the people who were thinking, all Alabama got to do is win out. 5 points don't matter. Well, we were saying weeks ago, are you looking at the same polls we are? They are.
Robert, in the defense of that, Robert, it hasn't mattered because we've never seen this type of bias before. In the past, like if this had been, I feel like this had been any other year, Alabama would probably be sitting at worst case number 6 right now, but more likely number 5. but they hyped up the Pac-12 so much at the beginning of the season that we can't, it's hard to overcome that. You see what I'm saying?
And every week they found a way to legitimize Oregon until they won beat a ranked team. They were throwing out a Utah team when they had 3 losses and then 4 losses. And then when they finally couldn't keep them ranked, they then went to other stuff. They went to style points. And I didn't hear last night. Xavier said that they literally said one of the criteria for Oregon being ranked where they are is Bo Nix's completion rate.
So I totally believe Xavier. I didn't even have to hear the man say that. When Xavier, the minute he said it, I believed it.
That is crazy. That you literally saying, I'm like, okay. At that
I didn't have to hear it. I didn't have to hear it. But the minute Xavier said it, I said, I know. I don't have to hear him. I don't have to look it up on YouTube to make sure he said it. I know he's number one, Xavier. So I know he told me the truth. And number 2, because this committee. Because where this committee is. We saw it not just weeks, we saw it months ago with them. It became so obvious. They have set the scenario up to where the 2 best teams in college football, and they all know it, Vegas definitely knows it, cannot be in the playoffs because both of them lost 1 game. Whereas the Pac-12, their conference champion can be in the playoffs with only 1 loss. And Alabama will have beaten, if they beat Georgia, they would have beaten 5 top 25 teams and not be in the playoffs. Where's the world does that work? I think it's a plant, Martin. I think it's a plant for them to get us to be all welcome in the 12-team playoff. Although all of us in this conversation was already welcome in the 12-team playoff, so we didn't need any more motivation. But they've get motivated us. Thank goodness gracious, I'm going to get this 12-team. Can we get it tomorrow?
That's right.
Because this is patently unfair, and that's what they're setting us up for. The Pac-12 is good, no matter who wins or loses. The SEC, you guys are the best, but well, that's how it goes. Because they know if they don't keep the SEC out this year, the SEC is going to dominate again like they have been. So I think this is their opportunity to make sure the SEC doesn't win this year. We've already won Alabama to win because it's Alabama. But I want them to win just so that committee will have to, with a straight face, tell me Alabama has beaten 5 top 25 teams, including the number 1 team in the nation, and lost in almost 3 years, but you're still not one of the best 4 teams. I want them to say that. I want them to say that.
It's bad, man. And he didn't use strength of schedule, strength of record, ranked wins coming up. None of that came up for why Oregon is in front of Texas. Let alone, you can make that argument for Texas or Alabama. There's no reason.
Yeah. When you go that, and I'll let you respond to this, and then we get to the next call with Robert. But listen to this. His reasoning: Bo Nix's completion percentage, Oregon State's average point total, and a loss to Washington. Nothing about wins, nothing about ranked wins, nothing about strength of schedule, and nothing about strength of record. For the number, when you and I'll say this quickly. When I ran for mayor here in Tuscaloosa, I told people, this guy has been the mayor for 16 years. And I've never been in politics. He should be able to lay out a record of what he has done that should absolutely shut me up. Because he's been here 16 years. He should have so much stuff he's done for this city that he shouldn't have to go back to the tornado. Well, here's a team that's number 5 in the country. They shouldn't have to look at anything except for what they've done on the field against people on the field. You shouldn't be pulling up individual statistics and opponents' percentages and points total when that's the only ranked win you have. And the only reason they're ranked is because the committee is ranking them. And then on top of that, you go, oh, yeah, and they had the best loss.
Exactly. And if all resumes, if Alabama and Oregon's resume were exactly identical as far as wins and losses and who they played, I would be fine with the style points making the difference. Yeah. I mean, hey, you got to separate it some kind of way, but we know that's not the case. They know it's not the case, and strength of schedule and all that. Okay, forget it. Blow it out the water. Forget about it. Those style points that all these folks were claiming Alabama didn't need, and we were all saying, I think they really do. Well, here you go. But thankfully, it all ends next year. So, all right, guys.
I'll ask you this just with a yes or no. If I sent you two resumes, like literally when people write their resumes and the company that's hiring them don't know who they are, if you don't put a name on that and you put Alabama resume on paper and Oregon resume on paper, and you've never heard of college football, take fans who've never heard of college football and didn't have an eye test, and you were to forget the eye test, because eye test is 100% judgmental.
Yeah.
New Mexico State should be in if eye test matters that much. Who would you pick? There's no way a non-biased fan would look and say, oh, yeah, they dominated. Well, we dominated Kentucky. And then Kentucky dominated Louisville. So eye test, those things are great, but they don't matter unless you make them the most important. And that's what they've done. Thanks, Robert. All right, let's get Pat. Pat, you're in on the Alabama One hotline with Martin and Xavier. What's on your mind, sir?
Hey, first off, all I'm going to say is live and die with a 3, and we damn sure did. But anyway, enough said about that. This thing is getting absolutely ridiculous. I'm beginning to think that unless we beat Georgia by my predicted score of 31-17, we're out. We're out. That's just that simple. That this bunch is as biased as they were when poor old Coach Bryant had to get on Bob Hope's show and beg for a national title. Beg. It's awful. And I don't know what else to say about it. What do you guys think?
Hey, Pat, before I let you go, what's Georgia total yards? You didn't give me your tiebreaker last week.
Total yards for Georgia, 315.
By the way, you and I went ahead, since you didn't give me a tiebreaker, I gave you and the other guy were the closest. Nobody was close, but you and another gentleman were closest last week. So you got a 3-game win streak, Pat. You and MHS 0407 had the closest score last week. You got a 3-game win streak going, Pat.
I'm bound to be able to get me a wardrobe of T-shirts, and yes. But anyway, it sounds good. But Martin, I just am beside myself about this Oregon deal, and I'm kind of wondering if on that committee, was all of that committee tied to Nike? What I'm saying about is that all of the ones that do play football or have played football, have they all got Nike ties? The only thing I can think of is that this is bought off. But there's a conspiracy theory that Nike is buying the national title for the
Ducks. They might just do it, Pat. Thank you, sir. All right, coming back on the other side, we'll get some of the comments coming in. Then we'll also, I think we have one more caller. Philip, we'll get you in as far as the playoff as well. And hey, listen, if we don't get to our conversation regarding the comparison game, we'll get to it tomorrow and Friday as we look at comparing these two teams and what's going to be the difference as we move toward Saturday's big showdown. The question with the college football playoffs, to get in or not get in, that is the question. Right now, I think Bama fans are starting to settle in on it's very possible with the way the committee has treated Texas and Alabama. They've linked them together that either both get in or neither get in. That I mean, either they both get in or only Texas get in. There is a scenario where they both could get in. We'll talk about that as well. More conversation right here on your home for Alabama sports, Tide 100.9.
Tide 100.9 traffic.
From the Townsend Nissan Traffic Center, we got a wreck on 15th Street. This is near 4th Avenue East at the Sprint Mart. Emergency personnel are on the scene. We have lane blockage and delays. If you see other conditions, just give me a call. Townsend Nissan's year-end closeout is on now with discounts up to $10,000. No reasonable offer will be refused. Townsend Nissan, and I'm Captain Ray.
Hey, Jen, I just stopped in to say hello. Oh my gosh, look how busy it is in here. How did you get all these customers?
Yeah, this month has been a record breaker for us. For a long time, we had decent business coming in from word of mouth, but we weren't really growing. Lately, though, a lot of new folks have been finding us online, and that's made all the difference.
That's terrific. I wish I could figure out how to do that for my shop, but I have no idea where to start.
Just do what I did. It's not as hard as you think. Go to mylocalcustomers.com to see exactly how many searches there are here for businesses like yours.
Okay, then what?
If you see that there are a good number of clients searching in our area, you'll also get some suggestions for the best way to get their attention.
Do you think there are a lot of people searching for my business?
There's only one way to find out. Go to mylocalcustomers.com. It's quick, easy, and free.
Go to mylocalcustomers.com for a free local customer analysis that will show you how many Tuscaloosa customers are searching online for your type of business. It's quick, easy, and free. Visit mylocalcustomers.com. That's mylocalcustomers.com.
Hi, Barry Buckner for Tuscaloosa Hyundai. Based on the past 2 years, you've heard nothing but bad news with interest rates. But when you can buy a new Hyundai Santa Fe's with 0% financing for 5 years, that's great news. And it's here right now. For the first time ever, new Santa Fe's now at Tuscaloosa Hyundai with 0% 60-month financing. 0 for 60 months. Yes, I said it. 5 years of free financing. Plus, you make no payments until February of 2024. If you've been thinking about buying, don't wait. New Tuscaloosa Hyundai Santa Fe's with 0 60-month financing plus no payments until February 2024 is great news. So let's get straight to the point. If you want to pay more, that's your business. If you want to save, that's our business. Tuscaloosa Hyundai, corner of Skyland and Hargrove, TuscaloosaHyundai.com.
With approved credit, see dealer for complete details.
Do you hear that? That's the sound of holiday joy at the Home Depot, where you can find everything you need to get ready for the holiday season, like all new festive outdoor decor. Spread more joy this season with holiday decor that is uniquely you, like our new 3.5-foot Santa and Elf inflatable, each just $19.98. Available in-store and online. Get holiday ready right now at the Home Depot. How doers get more done.
It's the holiday friends and family sale at JCPenney, and you're invited. Everyone can take home something extra with their 30% off coupon. That's on top of already great savings across the store, like 50% off essentials to deck your halls and home, and up to 40% off Liz Claiborne, perfect for any get-together. Or use your coupon to save an extra 30% store-wide. JCPenney, make your holidays count. Offers valid on select styles. Store-wide coupon ends 12/3. Liz event ends 12/6. Home sale ends 12/17. Exclusions apply. See store or jcp.com for details.
Welcome back to the Martin Houston Show, the sound of Bama sports. Your show, your team, on your home for Alabama sports. Tide 100.9 and streaming on the Tide 100.9 app.
Welcome back into the Martin Show. If you're looking for a great place to eat, go try Billy's Cooking Restaurant. They have great specials Wednesday, Thursdays, and Fridays. That's Wing Wednesday, Fish Friday, and Soul Food Sunday. I said Saturday, and Soul Food Sundays. But for Saturday, you can get those game day specials, wings and ribs. Go check them out. Tell them that Martin Houston with the Martin Houston Show told you to stop by, or call them at 205-652-8617, 205-652-8617. That's Billy's Cooking Restaurant. Visit them online on Facebook at Billy's Cooking LLC. All right, we got a couple comments I want to get to. MHS 0407 got a couple comments. He said, Boo, last night is completely over his head. He and the committee doesn't know anything about D1 football. CJ Watson said, I have no idea how they plan to pick teams once they expand the playoffs, but this purely human element has got to go. It's embarrassing. The BCS did it right. They just didn't have enough teams in the conversation, in my opinion. They usually got the top 2 teams right, but there was usually 3, 4, 5 teams that were really good enough that deserved to be a part of the conversation. To me, it's easy. You didn't need 12 teams. You didn't need 100 teams. You have 5 Power 5 conferences, boom, and then you take one at large, either a group of 5 or what is viewed as the second best conference. Let's look at this. This year alone, if you had the 6 teams, X, then Georgia or Alabama would be in if Alabama won. And then the other one would be the conference champions. Because Georgia doesn't deserve to be out of this with a loss to us either. Because that would mean the only team in the last 3 years to beat Georgia is the Alabama Crimson Tide. And the team that was a national champion before Georgia's run was Alabama. So that means that they're still the best program, and the 2 best programs are still the 2 best programs. And you're going to end an era of football with the 2 best programs being unlisted. Alabama has had a historic run with their number of national championships they've won. Every other year, Alabama has won a national title since their first one. There's never been this long without a national title. And now Georgia is on the verge of the longest SEC streak ever and a potential 3-peat. And now you're going to tell me those aren't the best teams in college football, even when there's only maybe 1 or 2 teams that have a better record in all of football, and then you're going to say someone else with 1 loss is better than them. There you go. Virgil Williams said it's all being set up to completely keep the SEC out. If Bama beats Georgia, then no SEC team gets in. If you look at last night's poll, next year SEC has 6 of the 12 teams in, and they know this is coming. MHS 0407 says, even at number 8, Bama is being set up not to get in. That means UGA is not getting in either if Bama beats them Saturday. Bam Bam 72 says, one way or the other, Bama has to win. That's the first thing. Even with their win, they need some help. I think Washington and FSU have to lose. I would love to see all top 4 teams lose just to have a total chaos. I would love to see Texas get in and us play Texas again. So I would like to see the Washington and FSU scenario too. So, yeah. But, anyway, chaos. Come on, bring it on. All right, Philip, you've been patient. You're in with Xavier and Martin on the Alabama One hotline. What's on your mind?
Well, I was just glad they didn't drop us last night.
Why you say that?
Oh, yeah, that was just me. I'm just suspicious of him. But, hey, man, this is all about agendas and storylines. Georgia's going to get in even with a loss to us because they've got a chance to 3-peat. Michigan and Oregon are getting in because that's going to be a Big Ten matchup in the Rose Bowl, so they're proud of that. FSU is going to get screwed, and they're going to get screwed because they're going to try to get Texas in because the finals are in Houston. So FSU better beat Louisville by 100-0. This is a bunch of fixed BS.
You know what? Florida State might be who I feel the worst for, because outside of like Bama potentially, because nobody would expect Louisville to beat them with Jordan Travis. They're just being honest. Nobody would have expected a close game last week with Jordan Travis. An injury is the worst thing that happened, but it's also part of the game. But I think I think we need Oregon to lose. I think Washington needs to win, and I think Oregon needs to lose to give them just that second loss, so they're completely out of the question and out of the equation. Because if they beat Washington, now the argument is the same argument that Georgia has. Washington's only loss is to a team that they've already beaten. How are you going to penalize them for losing to a team they beat during the regular season? You see, Washington needs to win. Michigan, we beat Georgia. We need Florida State, Oregon, and Texas to lose, and we're in. That's what it is.
Yep. Anything else, Philip?
No, man. I wish I'd get it right, but Georgia's going to make it, even with a loss. So I don't know. This cake got baked weeks ago. Weeks ago.
Yeah.
They're just projecting winners right now. That's all they're doing. They're projecting winners. They're predicting who they think is going to win.
I hear you. Thanks. Interesting take by Philip there. Thanks, Philip. Appreciate you. All right. Curtis Moore II said Alabama is getting penalized for not scheduling more cupcakes. Seems like strength of schedule doesn't have the same weight as it once did in the past last year. Next season, with the realignment of these conferences, with teams moving to various conferences, this debate will be easier to sort out in the future, possibly. The not only Bama fatigue, SEC fatigue as well, laugh out loud. As Curtis Moore II, MHS 0407 said the problem is Boo and the Scottish Football Committee change the narrative every week. That's the ticket right there. If they had a list of criteria at the beginning of the year, if this committee, if you could nail them down on what they're judging, all of this goes out the window. The problem is they have the ability, they're not very transparent. They don't show you the conversations. It's behind closed doors. They say people excuse themselves, but they don't show whether people work in the room. Listen, a politician can excuse himself from a vote, but that doesn't mean that he didn't work the room before he excluded himself from the vote. In other words, you and I right now, we're talking about why Alabama and Georgia should be in. So what difference would it make if we take ourselves out of the vote and that other person takes their out of the vote? Whichever one we've convinced of that's on our side, that see things our way and created bias for, they get in, X.
Yeah. No,
So,
I mean, this committee has taken what we all thought was going to be a really good thing and just turning it into a mockery.
well, what this proves is the committee has really never had to do a lot, X, in terms of ranking. The teams have kind of lost to make it easy. That makes sense?
Yeah.
In other words, they've not had a situation where they have 5 really good conference champions in the past. They've had a clear 2-loss champion, where teams have kind of disqualified themselves. And I think that's what they've been hoping would happen. And then they don't have to move anybody. Because the reality of it is they've not had the guts to move anybody except for Washington above Florida State. And that never should have been the case. Washington should have always been ahead of Florida State. You realize that's the only move they've made.
Yep.
That's it. Everything else that this committee has done, they put Missouri up in front of a couple teams, but that was it. But in the top 8, they made no moves other than forced moves or blatantly obvious moves. So this committee, a joke. All right, X, we didn't get to some of this other conversation, so I'm going to give you, at this point, I'm going to let you come back on the other side and the scenario that you think is most likely to happen. Prepare that conversation. We'll be back on the other side as we go to break here. I want to remind you about Alabama One. Alabama One, you can go check them out at alabama1.org. Alabama One together. Also, don't forget about Taco Casa. Quality, taste, and value under the biggest cactus in town. They will help you with your lunch and or dinner needs at Taco Casa. Quality, taste, and value on the biggest cactus in town. Go check them out and tell them that Martin Houston with the Martin Houston Show told you to stop by.
Tide 100.9 traffic.
From the Townsend Nissan Traffic Center, we got a wreck on 15th Street. This is near 4th Avenue East at the Sprint Mart. Emergency personnel are on the scene. We have lane blockage and delays. If you see other conditions, just give me a call. Townsend Nissan's year-end closeout is on now with discounts up to $10,000. No reasonable offer will be refused. Townsend Nissan, and I'm Captain Ray.
Here's what's trending on the Tuscaloosa thread.
Good Wednesday morning. Shots were fired into an occupied home in the Northport neighborhood of Northwood Lake last night. According to Northport Police Department, the shots were fired into a home in the 2800 block of Union Chapel Road around 7:15. There were no injuries, and the Tuscaloosa Violent Crimes Unit continues to investigate. Click TuscaloosaThread.com for more local news, sports, and weather throughout the day. It's absolutely free. Don Hartley, Town Square Media, Tuscaloosa.
The universal truth of women's shoes. The cuter they are, the more they hurt. You have to put your best foot forward, and if your best foot is an ugly shoe, oh my goodness. Lisa Ann thought she had to choose between looking good and feeling good until she got fitted for arch supports at the Good Feet store. Now I can wear the shoes that I've picked out because I like the way they look, not because they were comfortable. Good Feet relieved her pain and her fashion dilemma. Stop by or schedule your free fitting at goodfeet.com.
Come see us at 1800 McFarland Boulevard or goodfeet.com.
Hey, you. The one on the couch who just told your friend you can't go out because you're busy? Ready to get real about your psoriasis? When your current treatments don't do enough to help control the inflammation beneath the skin, causing plaques and pain, stressing and scratching, it's time to stop hiding and get real with your dermatologist so they can help you get clear. Get real clear about psoriasis at letsgetrealclear.com. Sponsored by AbbVie.
The Birmingham Racecourse Casino's 7 days of giveaways is going on now. We're giving away $125,000 in free play and cash at Birmingham Racecourse Casino.
It's time for the Martin Houston Show. With the same hard-hitting, no-nonsense approach in which he played the game, Martin will take you inside the locker room, down on the field, and across the goal line with his in-depth analysis.
Welcome back into the Martin Houston Show with Martin and Xavier. X, there is a blind squirrel sighting. I thought he's just going to hide out this week, but he's back. And he said Bama should just forfeit the championship game, take one for the team, let the SEC go ahead and get extra money because if Georgia gets in, they will three-peat. But here's the craziest thing, and I get what MHS 0407 is saying about Georgia's strength of schedule. Somebody needs to tell me, how is it that Oregon is getting away with one win against a ranked opponent?
6-8. That's a good question.
They didn't play Arizona. Arizona's the other team that's ranked, and they didn't play them. And the other ranked team they played, they lost to. Georgia will have played at least 4 currently ranked teams, or 5. No, 4, because they didn't play LSU. I mean, wow. I don't get it. So what scenario you see that gets Bama in?
The scenario that I see that gets Bama in is that we beat Georgia fairly convincingly. I don't think we have to boat race them or anything, but we beat Georgia. Texas loses to Oklahoma State, and Texas loses to Oklahoma State. Washington beats Oregon, and Louisville beats Florida State. And I think we're in convincingly.
Yeah, so we beat Georgia. That opens up 1 spot. And Florida State loses. That opens up 2 spots. Okay? So, with that said, the natural result from that will be Oregon or Washington in and Michigan in. Okay? So, that now leaves the conversation, X, if Florida State loses and Georgia loses, that means that it comes down between Ohio State, Texas, and Alabama, right?
Yeah.
Because Washington is not getting in over Texas and Alabama. And Ohio State isn't getting in over Texas and Alabama with that win. So we need Florida State to lose and then take care of our business, right? Is that not right?
Yeah.
If Florida State loses, they're out. Okay. If Georgia loses, they're out. You can take Ohio State out, and then it becomes Texas and Alabama. And Oregon and Washington take care of each other. And we want to feel comfortable. Texas needs to lose too.
Yeah. That's why I said comfortably getting in.
All right. But anyway, we'll keep the conversation going. Join us tomorrow as we keep the conversation going right here on your home for Alabama Sports Tide 100.9. And we'll turn our conversation to the comparison game with Alabama and Georgia, looking at position by position and coaches versus coaches. We'll also have recruiting on tomorrow, and we'll have some Back to the Future. We'll look at some prior Alabama games. And at this time, we'll turn our attention to Scotty Hollins, Executive Director, Blueprint Ministries, with the Harvest Church Christian Moment of the Week. Thanks to all of you for joining in. We appreciate you for being a part of the conversation. Good morning, Scotty. How you doing, sir?
Good morning, Martin. I'm doing great. How are you?
Doing well. I want to pass it to you and let you encourage us how we can incorporate our faith into the boardroom, classroom, or chosen field of play. Maybe somebody last weekend said a little prayer in the corner over there, but
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. We're going to continue our theme, Strength Through the Storm. And I want to remind you of what we looked at last week, again, saying like, hey, taking a play out of Paul's book, and what we're looking at is Acts 26, when Paul actually is going through a major storm. Honestly, it was his last big storm, because he would be killed for sharing his faith and just for just his ministry and for preaching the gospel. He would actually not make it out of this imprisonment. And so as he's sharing his testimony, I wanted to look at, before we look at that, just kind of the inspiration behind him sharing his testimony. Once again, he's going through a storm and he chooses to share his testimony. I think Paul understood that our lives are to be about, we talk about this often, knowing God, becoming more like him, and making him more known. And he knew in this instance, where he's been arrested for preaching the gospel, for telling other people about Jesus, that this was an opportunity for him to know God. Now check it. He had been knowing God more his whole life. I mean, as a believer, when you look at his life and you look at the strength and you look at the perseverance and you look at his responses, it's there's no way he responds that way consistently without really having a clear picture of who God is and placing his full trust in him. And so when you look at two things, knowing God, but also making him more known. When you look at knowing him, one thing that will help you to make him known in the midst of the storm, as you look for strength in the storm, is this: not looking at God through the lens of your circumstances. And so my point is, all the knowing him more leading up to the major storms helps you to not fall for that trick, to not look at God through the lens of our circumstances. What I mean by that is to not say, if God allowed this, he can't be good. That's a trick. And so I'm saying, don't fall for that trick. And as you look at all that God has done, to get you to this point, as you look at who God has revealed himself what he said about himself in the pages of scripture, then let that inform you on who God is. But check that out. Once you do that, you decide to, I'm going to look at God. I'm going to look at my circumstance through the lens of my God. Once we do that, then now our lives, we have greater strength during that time, because we know that we don't know what tomorrow holds, but we know who holds tomorrow, and there's strength in that alone, in that hope. And so then we can make him known. What Paul does as he's talking to King Agrippa, literally knowing that King Agrippa could either set him free or, send him up the road to talk to Caesar, what he ends up doing is he shares his testimony.
And again, here's a side note. As we look at Paul sharing his testimony, I'm going to give you 4 quick questions, 4 things that he shares that can allow anybody here who say, you know what, I'd like to share my testimony of how I came to know Christ. He answers 4 quick questions. He says, here's what my life was like before Christ, okay? And you'll hear that. And he says, all right, here's how I became aware of my need for Christ. 3rd thing, he says, here's how I accepted Christ. 4th thing, here's how Christ has changed my life. He talks about his life before Christ. I'm going to give you very brief. And when he talks about his life before Christ, he talks about how he was one that was against Christianity. He was one who was killing Christians. And he's like, listen, if you should listen to anybody, it should be me. I was with you. And I was actually more zealous and more passionate about this than you. And so he begins there, and I'll stop here, but he begins his journey to share Christ in the midst of his storm. Here's why. Listen, because he knew who his God was. All right. And guess what? Not just that, he wanted the people that he was talking to know who his God was. So understand that wherever you are with your storm, you can find strength there in knowing God and making him known.
Yeah, and that's so awesome. As you were saying that, I thought about Peter walking out on the water, not looking through the circumstances. That was a storm, and everybody always laughs about Peter falling and sinking in the water. But if you study that storm out, they were still in the boat, and the storm was still going. And then Peter, when he began to sink, as long as he kept his eyes on who Christ was, he didn't sink. And when he took his eyes off of who Christ was and looked at his circumstances, he began to sink. But watch this. Because he was walking through the storm, when he began to sink and he had not taken out, it said Christ immediately reached out and grabbed him. That tells you, remember, Jesus was so far away they couldn't see him clearly. So Peter had walked in water for quite a while. And that's what we don't get. We miss the beauty of that storm.
Miss that.
Yeah. So he had walked a while before he took his eyes off. And hey, listen, the storms of life sometimes come so that we can learn to trust him. Trust him.
Amen.
So we'll talk more about it next week. Hey, Scotty, tell me real quick where they can find you, sir.
Absolutely. You can go to www.blueprinttuscaloosa.com. You can send me a message there. Come straight to me, man.
And that's Scotty Hollins, Executive Director, telling us to have strength through the storm. And we know that the Alabama Crimson Tide had strength through their storm Saturday, as no matter what had happened in the first 59 minutes plus, they kept playing, made a play at the end. We'll talk about that play and more on tomorrow. We'll keep the conversation going. Remember this, trust in the Lord always. Lean not your own understanding, always acknowledge him, and he will direct your paths. Roll Tide out there, everybody. We'll catch you on tomorrow. For Martin Houston, Xavier Houston, Scotty Hollins, and Noah Haynes, it is the Martin Houston Show Power.
Thank you for listening to the Martin Houston Show on your home for Alabama sports. Tide 100.9 and streaming on the Tide 100.9 app.